Welcome to the Advertising Forum. This is episode 1 of our Brand Trust series, sponsored by Mozilla Ads.
With us today is Mike McNeeley, SVP Product at Index Exchange, joining us today to chat about trust, transparency, and premium programmatic. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Episode 1, we can't mess this up.
No, we can't.
We have great editors, so don't worry. We'll clean it up anyway, Mike. We'll make it perfect all the way through. Mike, you've obviously been in the space for quite some time. You have a fantastic understanding of the ecosystem and how it works. Brand safety, brand trust is always a hot topic, and everybody's been talking about it. I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, where did we lose brand trust? And I would love for you to kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd say we lost it, but I think it's an ever-going problem that we have to keep on top of. Like, the world is changing, obviously, with AI and other things. It's important that we make marketers feel comfortable that where they're spending their dollars is being effective, and it's not going to, unsavory environments. And that goes for the open web, where users spend the majority of their time, but marketers don't spend the majority of their money. And it also applies to, walled gardens and other environments. So I think it's something that we have to keep going, and, it's a journey.
You recently launched with Mozilla. Could you explain to us what made their model actually different and valuable to you?
Yeah, I think from our side, we're interested in, partnering with publishers to do interesting things. And Mozilla is not necessarily a publisher per se, but they have a, home screen experience, which, it counts. And they never really served ads into that experience before. And so they came to us wanting to work on a privacy safe solution, and still, getting that up and live and going, but, working through the challenges of that. Certainly extremely innovative. And, that's the kind of sweet spot for us. We want to focus as a technology company, empowering publishers, and it's kind of a perfect fit, if you will.
So can privacy first ads still perform without all the tracking?
Privacy. So I guess I'd answer it in a couple different ways. Number one, that there's a lot of companies out there that are exploring just, advertising in environments where they don't necessarily rely on the cookie, or they don't rely on any sort of identifiers. That inventory on the exchange typically tends to be a little less expensive. And you kind of get into this sort of challenge for marketers about, are you chasing cheap reach, or are you looking for just simply the best return on your ad spend, and you don't care about CPMs per se, as long as they're performing? And I think we're going through another one of these, debates in our ecosystem about, is outcomes at all costs what matters, or are there other metrics to marketers that they care about that don't necessarily need, a strong CPA to be tracked against, et cetera. So, I trackers is sort of a term that's been latched on to by certain folks. And then I think there's a growing and loud community too that feels like things like cookies are actually fine, that they are anonymous enough, and that the alternatives, when you try to put things in a box, it gets a little bit it's a little dicey.
So if it gets a little dicey, does brand safety feel old school to you? And what does safety actually mean now?
Yeah, this is going to be a wild one. So if we think about
buckle up,
brand safety, typically it was done at a top level domain or URL level, and then it's gotten more advanced to look at full URLs. I think that there are some brand safety providers that and contextualization companies as well that are really good at quickly reviewing content, and some that are, may have a 24-hour lag on their reviews of URLs. And maybe an unknown fact for a lot of folks, on the open web, on the exchange, when we look at URLs that come through, basically almost 50% of the URLs that come through the exchange are brand new as of that day. That there's a huge amount of URLs that turn over every day. And this is from news and content and people pushing out, fresh content for users, et cetera. And so if as a marketer, you can't have those URLs reviewed quickly, you're losing out on a huge amount of eyes in the moment viewing this content. So brand safety's got to get, much faster. And this is where I think what we're doing on the exchange side with containerization, with AI agents, et cetera, how do we bring these closer to the exchange so things can happen much, much faster? And then we're certainly going to get into brand safety on the publisher side too, or creative safety, if you will, where you get marketers trying to create, ads on the fly, dynamic creative will explode, et cetera. And so how will publishers be able to, have solutions in place to monitor that and protect their users as well?
So where exactly, Mike, does transparency still break down in programmatic?
In some spots, I think that it's like alive and well. Like I would argue an index exchange, it's alive and well. But in other platforms, if marketers are spending their dollars through them and they don't support, certain types of reporting, certain transparency in the reporting, either it be with fees or it be with reports about the specific URLs that you're running on, this can get us into certain issues. We just announced a really cool partnership with Gracenote where marketers be able to, basically pay for show level transparency with the publisher. So the publisher gets higher CPMs on, being able to provide the show level reporting and targeting versus what they might offer in the open exchange. So there's a bunch of things in there I think that are in play, but I think the market's becoming more transparent in certain spots and probably less transparent in other areas. Things like PMAX and other solutions that just kind of just work in our industry. People are like, well, how do they work? And they're like, it's technical. So I don't know. I think marketers have to find that balance between trust and, performance.
So if a marketer is trying to find the balance between trust and performance, if you were advising a CMO today, this week, we're in the throes of strategic planning for 2026. We're in early December. Where's the safest place for a CMO to spend?
I think historically, they've found that, like Google and Facebook is where they end up spending the majority of their dollars because they have such good tools in those environments. I think we all increasingly hope that they find the open web through some of the DSP partners that we work with, through folks like Index Exchange, et cetera, where, the tools to be able to do omni-channel, omni-format advertising are there. They just kind of have to lean into it. And we have such a fragmented ecosystem that I think it becomes kind of a little bit hard to navigate sometimes. But certainly, like, the inventory is there, the users are there, the eyeballs are there, the time spent is there. The tech is getting increasingly better. It's just maybe a little bit harder to navigate with all the people you got to work with. But I think it's worth it. And I think that it's a better use of money than, maybe some of the other alternatives that they could have.
Mike, you mentioned something, you mentioned a lot around trust, transparency. In your opinion, what exactly is premium programmatic? I'd love to hear your definition of it before we wrap up this episode.
So, premium, such a hard answer, but in my head, it would be anything that is, brand name that, our parents would know, or our aunts and uncles would know. There's a lot of companies out there that have premium content that I bet you'd be surprised that you can reach all of their content through ad exchanges and through programmatic. So, certainly Mozilla and Firefox is one. We have other great publishers on the exchange, Dotdash Meredith, People, we have, great streaming television partners. So that to me is all premium. And certainly there's a lot of sites out there and a lot of apps and a lot of streaming content that you can get additional scale if you want. But if you're looking for big brand names, certainly it's out there and available to you.
I totally agree with you on that point. I think the definition of premium in terms of name recognition, brand safety, brand trust, a safe environment for your advertisers that generates the type of reaction to the right type of audience is really premium to me. So thank you for sharing your view of that, Mike. I wanted to thank you for joining us today on this episode. On our next episode, we have Orville McDonald from Mozilla. He's sharing his insights on privacy first, user trust, and the future of the open web. Thank you again to Mozilla Ads for sponsoring this series. See you guys on the next one.
Thank you, Mike. Bye.
Thank you.